Welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday. I'm Erica Fernandez, and I'm here today with Casey Stutzman. Casey, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So a lot of times people talk about having tight hamstrings and having tight muscles, but how do people alleviate that problem?
That's a really good question. A lot of times people will alleviate hamstring tightness by stretching them, but that's most often not the best way to go. So we have to look at why the hamstrings are tight, what's causing that tightness, and how are they tight. So what I mean by that, there's two different ways a muscle can be tight. So muscles are elastic, so much like this band, they stretch and they move. There's two ways. When we say tight, we mean immobile. It doesn't have full range of motion. So there's two reasons that could be happening. One, there's a knot. So that big knot in the tissue means that it can't move.
Right.
The other reason is it could already be stretched. So think of this rubber band. Once I stretch it, that limits how much more I can stretch it. Plus, muscles don't like to be stretched, so the more you put tension on them, they start to seize up and limit their range of motion.
Okay.
So a lot of times, we spend a lot of time sitting behind desks and, working 9 to 5 and sitting on couches, which can cause really tight hip flexors. It can also cause tight ankles, which leads to what we call an anterior tilt in the pelvis. So really simply, if you think of your pelvis as a bucket of water, an anterior tilt means the pelvis is dumping water out the front of the bucket, which puts a lot of tension on here. Now, what we don't always realize, so your hamstrings, go ahead and turn sideways for me. The hamstrings attach at the base of the pelvis, and they also attach on the underside of the knee. So when you do that little pelvic tilt, we stretch this. Because now we're tilting the pelvis forward, so that's going to put tension on these hamstrings. Now, the best way to focus on this is to right the pelvis, not to keep stretching this which is already stretched. So just kind of trying to do toe touches and bends is putting a lot of tension on a muscle that already has too much tension. So what we're going to do to try and bring the front of the pelvis back up and level that bucket is we're going to address the deep hip flexors. We're also going to address the ankle. So a couple different ways we can do that. One, we can start with just a basic calf stretch. So if you put the ball of your foot up on the block, and then from here, just keep this leg nice and long. Make sure there's a little bit of tension in that right glute. And I'm just going to kind of extend into it and maybe pull back a little bit and just extend in and pull back. And I'm sure you're feeling a good stretch along there. Absolutely. Now, we can also be a little bit more aggressive with this. So have a seat for me. And you could use a simple foam roller. These are really inexpensive. You can get them at most sporting goods shop. And we can just kind of grind out some of that tissue. So if we're looking at the calves and the hip flexors, we're going to assume that they're that knotted tight. So we want to restore some length. So go ahead and have a seat. And then bring that leg up on here. And then cross the other one over. I want as much pressure as you can handle, but trying to not make the pain face.
On the calf?
Yes. And we're just going to kind of hear it. And instead of rolling up and down, I want you to find a space that feels kind of gristly, like right there, and grind it. Now you're starting to make the pain face.
A little bit.
Smile. Smile. Zen face. So from here, we're just going to kind of grind that out. You don't have to hit the whole calf. Just focus on those areas that are knotted and nasty. Spend 1 to 2 minutes on this every day. It'll make a huge, huge, huge difference. Now to address the hips, there's a couple different ways we can go. So we can try and release some of those deep hip flexors. We just have a massage ball here. It's a little harder than a tennis ball, so it's going to do a pretty good job. Go ahead and lie on your belly. You're going to put this right to your belly button and then move it one side. So we'll do one side and then we'll do the other side and come up into this little cobra position.
All right, and what does this do?
So this is going to try and help release some of those deep hip flexors, which is going to help to pull the pelvis back up. So how's that feel there? Now from there, kind of bend yourself up a little bit and then breathe. And notice how every time you exhale, that digs in, and then inhale, and then exhale. And we're going to spend about 2 minutes on each side of the belly button, just going through that slow, deep breath. You feel that kind of pressure in there? Feel how it's digging in a little bit? You can just do this while you're sitting there watching TV. And then the last we're going to hit for the hip flexors is you're going to come on up to this half kneeling position. So go ahead and find that. And so this foot's going to come out in front. And now from here, you're going to sit up nice and tall. Now what we don't want to do is bend into the back. I want you to think about pushing the hip forward. So you're going to squeeze this left glute just to push forward. Now if we want to intensify that a little bit, I can lift your back leg. And now from here, so think about leveling your bucket. So lift and then push and relax. So you don't necessarily need to rock forward. You're just driving this hip and then relax. Feel that difference there? So now here, we're not dumping into the low back. We're actually opening up the front. And if I want to intensify it, the higher I get this, and now push, smile, and then relax. And then push and relax. So you could either use a buddy to do this, or you could easily just put your foot against the wall. Same thing for any of these, 1 to 2 minutes per side on a daily basis. Find the ones that are the most uncomfortable, and they're going to make the biggest difference.
All right, so it's not just, so keep in mind that if it's your hamstrings that are tight, it
Yes.
could be a lot of other muscles.
Absolutely. One of the hardest things to deal with is if we have tightness or immobility or pain, the site of pain or restriction is almost never where the problem originates from. So we have to start to look above and below and outside, figure out why is that happening, and address the root of the problem.
All right, so get to stretching as soon as possible.
Stretching and mobilizing.
All right, well, thank you so much, Casey. I
pleasure.
appreciate it. Stay tuned because sports is next with John Scheidler.